Hello and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the 2024-25 season awards that we do every year. We've had a few weeks to digest a pretty eventful season, as it always seems to be when it comes to Everton, and yeah, this is I guess going to be a celebration of some of the best things, going through some big awards. So I'm joined by my podcast teammate as always, Harry. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. It's been do you know what? It hasn't felt like it's been a few weeks already since the end of the season. I feel like because we're so into the transfer details already, it feels like it's just pretty non-stop. But yeah, really excited to pause and reflect on what was a very eventful season last season.
Yeah, that's I'm glad it hasn't felt like a long time for you because it definitely has for me. I've been bouncing off the walls the last few weeks with no football to watch. So yeah, this will probably be quite therapeutic for me, to be honest. I think it's quite a good sign that, as I say, usually by this point we're all completely exhausted and just glad to have a few weeks off from it all. But I think for the first time in a while, for a lot of us, I think most of us are missing it a bit and kind of wish the season could have carried on for a bit longer based on how strongly we seem to end it. So that's probably a good sign, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I think, and we'll get into it probably, won't we? I dare say it'll be reflected a little bit in what we're about to talk about. But every conversation I've had with an Evertonian since the end of the season is this has very much felt like two seasons. I think if we took everything under the previous regime from September through to kind of December, January time, and then we look at sort of January through to the end of season, we would talk about them, comment on them in two very different lights. So maybe that's why for me, I'm glad of a little bit of a break, but like you say, Al, maybe for most of us, because it ended on such a high note, maybe everyone just wanted a little bit more.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think in that sense, it seems quite fitting almost to start get the negative out of the way, and it does almost kind of seem, as you say, like this is almost like a chronological way of looking at things because if we start, as I said, this the first category we'll do is the worst moment of the season, and as you say, all of these like uh nominations and that I'm looking at here are all pretty much consigned to the first half of the season, the dark
Yeah.
days of Deitch, if you will. And as you say, I think that is quite understandable, isn't it? Because it was we were struggling for a time, weren't we? And it was looking quite bleak at one point in the season, and yeah, early on there were quite a few bad days, weren't there?
Yeah, for sure. And I think well, obviously we're going to get into it here now, but what I would say on this is hopefully this time next season, now when we're doing the award show, we won't have as many nominations as I'm looking at in front of me right now because it was quite a split vote. Just looking at the results for this category, and as you say, many of them consigned to the previous manager. I hope this time next year we're looking at this with maybe, oh, we didn't win the quadruple would be the worst moment of next season.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we only drew against City. Ugh, like what? Yeah. But I mean, to be fair, I mean, the season before the 23-24 season, the one that won it that year was when Chelsea thrashed us 6-0. And
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say I don't think there was any point where I was as worried as I was after that game in this season. So, when you look at it like that, that's at least a step in the right direction. But yeah, so going through some of the votes, there's a couple here. Dyche's final game at Bournemouth, which yeah was a pretty bleak one to be fair. They only won
Yeah.
it late on, from what I remember, but that was a poor game. And then there is one in the Moyes era here when we lost to City when Tarkowski went off injured, and I guess that is to do with the fact that was a bit of felt like a missed opportunity. I think we spoke about that on the podcast afterwards that we City weren't in a great place at that time, and that probably looked like it could have been a bit of a scalp we could have claimed there. But obviously, the Tarkowski injury kind of derailed us, and Michael Keane came on and didn't have his best game in an Everton shirt, shall we say, and obviously made a lot of negative headlines. But yeah, third place will goes to the Southampton Cup defeat. Um, uh, and annoyingly, it was the second. It was like one of two times that Southampton somehow beat us last season. One of the
Yep.
worst teams in Premier League history, and that's one, yeah, that we're going to have to live with a little bit. Then second place, well, we have the 4-0 defeat at Manchester United. that was Amorim's first home game in charge, I think, from memory. So we
Yeah.
just kind of caught them at the wrong time. Had a bit of a spring in their step after Ten Hag left, and yeah, that was definitely a grim day at Old Trafford, as they always seem to be in the last few seasons. But first place, I think probably unsurprisingly, with 11 votes, goes to. It almost doesn't even feel like this was this season. It feels so long ago. But when we lost to Bournemouth back at Goodison back in August, 2-0 up, really strong performance as well. But which people always seem to forget just how well we actually played that day. And then
Yeah.
obviously we all know what happened. I think 87th minute they got their first goal just out of nothing, and suddenly we just completely capitulated. So yeah, I don't want to dwell on this one too much, but yeah. Anything to add on that
Yeah, do you
Palmer
know
show?
what? Before we move on, Al, I guess that sort of honourable mentions bit is the microcosm that I was talking about with the night and day. You know, the City home under Moyes being in there as an honourable mention just shows you how far he took us when he came back in January, that we would be upset by that and feel that that was a worst moment in the season. On Bournemouth being the winner, I do totally understand why. If we could have been a bit broader with this one, I just think the number of times we threw away two-goal leads this season, when we talked about it on the pod, but Man United, Ipswich, Bournemouth, Aston Villa, there's a list there, right? And okay, some of those teams are not, I guess maybe Villa being the main one there, not one that you'd be too ashamed to say, oh, okay, they've got a comeback in them. But yeah, next season, I hope we're not talking about throwing away any leads of kind of that size.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think Villa was the one where they were just too good for us. We kind of
Yeah.
it was a bit of a smash and grab job we'd done up until that point, whereas the other three all at Goodison did really feel like we threw it away. So yeah, there's definitely a different way you can look at it in that sense. But yeah, we'll move on quickly from that one, I think, and instead go right to the opposite end of the spectrum and the best moment of the season. Um, Again, like I say, the season before, it went to the 2-0 win in the derby. It's going to be hard for anything to pip that, I think. It's got to be said. Even though this season as a whole was probably better, I think as a moment, that derby win was special and very hard to beat. But honorable mentions have to go to the announcement that Goodison Park is going to be staying. I think for it was a news story that divided opinion, but I think the majority probably agree it's a good thing, and probably made saying goodbye just that little bit easier, knowing that it's not going to be knocked down or leveled out or anything like that. It will still be there. For people to attend. And also another vote for the final day of the season, that surprise win at Newcastle, spoiling their party a little bit. Jordan Pickford's name being sung for the whole 90 minutes, and being loved by the goalkeeper himself and getting under the skin of the Newcastle fans. So yeah, that was definitely a feel good day. Um, and in third place, we're giving it to the Forest away game. I think I might have gone for this actually. I think this might have been my vote. That was I think we spoke about it on the podcast, didn't we? That was probably
Great
as
game.
a performance, probably the strongest game of our season. Last minute winner, away day in the sun. All combined to make a really memorable day. Second place goes to the Tarkowski goal against Liverpool. That's got
That was
eight
my
votes to
vote.
its name. Yeah, very close moment. It's got to be said. Yeah, that definitely a very strong contender. Last Goodison game under the lights. I mean, so much has been said about, it, hasn't there? And Liverpool fans will, I'm sure, any watching will be like, "Oh, why is this draw? It's so high in your moments." But yeah, that we've done it all to death, haven't we? If you don't get
Yeah,
it,
we
you don't get it. Um, but yeah, just edging that out as the best moment of the season, and to be fair, again, you can't really argue with this one. But the Goodison farewell, final day, however many thousands of people in and around the ground, and then packing Goodison out for a really special send off, and the day went off pretty much without a hitch. I know quite a few people were worried about certain aspects of it, thought it would fall a bit flat after the game, but I thought everything came off perfectly, and it was a beautiful day in the sunshine, and just as I say, the perfect send off for Goodison. But as I alluded to earlier, not a full on goodbye, just more of a
yeah.
celebration really of 133 years of men's football. So yeah, we spoke about it on the podcast, and it was a really special day, wasn't it?
It really was, yeah. And we talked about the different perspectives of you being in the ground and me kind of watching the TV coverage from home. And you got to say, like, it was very kind of goosebumpy from the start to the finish. And there's not been. And okay, we don't want to get into negatives because this category is literally the opposite of a negative. But we did talk a lot on the pod this season about had the club done enough with Everton's final season. And whilst you're not going to please everybody, I think in its kind of simplest form, both on the pitch and around the pitch, there was a good farewell to Goodison. And as you say, I mean, probably this idea of it staying on for the women's team now kind of meant that in it not being a full goodbye and more so kind of a small change, as it were, it sort of maybe encapsulated our whole season about how a small change can be quite a big thing and a positive thing. So it's really nice those ones that we rattled away there. The Forest game, obviously, we talked about probably being our most complete performance of the season. There are no more words to be said on that Tarkowski goal. We'll just pause for a second here and let everyone go and rewatch it another 10 times and then come back to the video. But I think a worthy winner, even though my vote went there and now yours went to the Forest game, I think it'd be hard to argue against that final game at Goodison picking up this award.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to improved player. I said, interestingly here, last season's winner, which was Vitaly Mikalenko, is actually in second place here and got 4 votes.
Nice.
So yeah,
Yeah.
there's clearly still a few people that I know. Again, another player that really splits opinion among the fan base. But in fairness, I do think since Baines has come in and since we've had a little bit more of an attacking attempt, I think going forward in particular, you definitely you can see improvements in Mikalenko's game. Jake O'Brien and bizarrely Ashley Young, even at 39, people still think he's improving. They each got a vote, but this is probably the most conclusive one on the list. To be fair, 16 votes to his name. Yeah, a very obvious winner in Beto. Who, yeah,
Absolutely.
again, you talk about a season split in half. But Beto is that in a microcosm, as you say, pretty much wouldn't quite say frozen out, but very much on the periphery. Under Deitch didn't really seem that fancy. Calvert-Lewin getting a nod pretty much every week, and then that injury that Calvert-Lewin suffered at Brighton opened the door for better, and he's been superb mostly, I think, under David Moyes. Had the real purple patch when he first came back into the side, and scored a few towards the end of the season as well. There's been a very noticeable improvement, I think, in Beto's game, and I think he's again, it's something we've spoken about quite a lot, but I think he's looking good for potentially being a starter again next season, I'd say.
Yeah, the biggest compliment I can give Beto, and we know, very decisive winner here, but the biggest compliment I can give Beto is in January when there was talks of him going away from the club, and there were these pictures of him at airports in Italy, and there were links to Torino and other Italian clubs. I wasn't actually that bothered. I think the only thing that bothered me was Calvert-Lewin's injury record, Schmidt not having minutes, Brozier being made of Weetabix, and us not having a striker up top. I would say the biggest compliment I can give now is in the summer, seeing these links with Leeds. It actually worries me more so than the Branthwaite rumours, because I think Beto is somebody who is a David Moyes player. He's kind of that instrument that's a bit out of tune that Moyes can kind of get a decent song out of. As you say, he for me is the one. I think if we invested our money in better support around him, I don't think he would be on an improved players list next season. I think he might even be picking up a player of the season award next season. So yeah, very worthy winner. Just on Mikalenko, I think Mikalenko kind of is having a bit of the similar run that Beto had in the sense of he's had these waves of kind of good form and then kind of under the radar and then good form again. And as you say, I think having Baines there has probably helped him a lot. So yeah, shout out to Mikalenko. And I'm sure 38-year-old Ashley Young or 39-year-old Ashley Young is absolutely delighted to be picking up our third place improved player award this season.
Yes, it's a bizarre one, that, isn't it? Following on a similar theme, I guess, underrated player. Again, this went to Idrissa Gueye last season, which is pretty mental to consider based
Yeah.
on just how well he's been this season, and yes, I'm sure he'll name will be mentioned later on in the video, I'm sure. Um, But yeah, this to be fair, this is one that's split a lot of opinion by the looks of it. You've got both McNeil and Ndai have each got a vote. I'm going to assume Ndai is to do with the Premier League as a whole rather than Everton fans because obviously it's rare a new signing has been taken aboard this quickly and this early. Obviously, he's got his song being sung about him. I think Ndai has definitely become a fan's favourite and definitely certainly not been underrated at all this season by Everton fans anyway. So yeah, I assume that's more of a bigger picture thing. And then you've got in third place is split between five players here. You've got Vitani Mikalenko, Jake O'Brien, James Tarkowski, Idrissa Gueye again, and Beto have all got two votes each. So yeah, clearly a lot of people struggling to decide on this one.
Yeah.
James Garner comes in second with four votes. Again, a very divisive figure among Everton fans. I think he might have been who I went for as well, to be fair. But then first place, just mentioned him again, it is Ashley Young. And yeah, again, I'd say first half of the season is probably most of what this is based on because obviously he's kind of been out the side mostly under Moyes. But
Yeah.
I think first half of the season when he was playing week in, week out, mostly due to injuries elsewhere, in fairness, I thought he was a very, very solid performer. And obviously people kind of forget that he got sent off on the opening day of the season and a lot of people were very fed up with him at that point and kind of been used as a scapegoat really for just how bad the recruitment has been the last few seasons, or at least just how unambitious, I guess you could say, with just how limited the funds have been. He's kind of the representation of that. But in fairness to him, I think he's dusted himself down really well since then. And barely put a foot wrong. And it says a lot that once he announced he wasn't going to be staying next season, I think the majority of people were a bit disappointed, really. And so, yeah, Ashley Young as the most underrated player. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know how someone can be underrated when he's won pretty much everything for two clubs, but I totally get it in the context of the season and the context of our team. I mean, I think it does show tremendous resolve, doesn't it? He missed the penalty in that Southampton Cup game. And I think at that point, I was very much ready for us to have a strict football manager style only sign under 30s policy at Everton Football Club. I would say now, yeah, underrated player for this season. The last couple of games, he was coming in and off the bench and actually could cross a ball, which is a rarity at the moment for us. I don't want to dwell on it because that's not why we're here today. But the talk of Coleman getting another contract from a sentimentality and leadership purpose, I do get it. But Ashley Young is leaps and bounds ahead at that age, and I think that would for me is it's a shame he's not staying. But yeah, good for him. I don't know if it wasn't Ashley Young who we would have gone for. I think my vote was actually for Garner Gay, so I'm one of the ones that got him into that long melee of five players there in third place.
Yeah, that was definitely one that split opinion. Whereas the next category, goal of the season, I stand corrected based on what I said earlier. This is definitely the most conclusive one. Last season went to Calvert-Lewin in the derby. And it's probably no surprise that it's another derby goal that has won it. And as we alluded to earlier, we'll have to pause the video again and let people go and watch it another 10 times again. But yeah, it's the Tarkowski one by a landslide. And yeah, just what a and we spoke about it before. What an incredible moment. And yeah, it does almost kind of get lost just how good a goal it actually was. Like, because
Yeah.
even if it had just been one that was scrambled in, Beto falling over the ball or whatever, it still would have been an incredible moment, just being a 98th minute equaliser in the final ever Goodison derby. But the manner of the goal from Tarkowski, of all people, who I don't think we've ever really seen that high up the pitch other than from set pieces at all. So yeah, just what an incredible moment and what an incredible goal.
Yeah, I think, I've got a huge nostalgia and fondness for Everton number sixes rifling in last minute equalisers in derbies. So, I would say for me, I have to have two screens at home now because every time I watch Tarkovsky's one, I have to watch Jagielka's one as well. It's just kind of like a rite of passage. But yeah, shout out to Tarkovsky. I don't think. I know that and Die here got two votes, by the way, versus Spurs, just throwing that one out there in second place, but two votes to the 21 votes of Tarkovsky. It does make you think. I want to know who voted for and Die against Spurs. We need to get them on this to give their insight into what made it a better goal.
I think I might have done actually. I don't know if I just wanted to be a bit different
Mix
or
it up.
whatever. In fairness, just a word on that entire goal. Talk about getting you off your feet, and I think we spoke a little bit about um just how long it's been since we've had a
Yeah,
player who could score a goal like that. Um, and that's exactly what we were missing under Deitch, and that excitement factor. And that was the what was it, the second game in Moyes' spell, the Spurs game, 3-0 up at half time. And that goal in particular just kind of encapsulated just a breath of fresh air around Goodison at that time. So yeah, that was a very special goal to be fair. But yeah, obviously Tarkowski's moment was definitely very special. Um, and then yeah, we'll move on to the game of the season as a whole. So once again, the 2-0 win against Liverpool basically swept up everything last year.
yeah,
And as we spoke about before, I don't think any game has pipped that this season. But again, this is another one that there were several very good candidates for this. So honorable mentions have to go to the final ever Goodison game again against Southampton. Probably not as an actual game itself. I don't think it was, Southampton didn't really look that arsed, if we're being honest. And yeah, after we went 2-0 ahead, we kind of took our foot off the gas a little bit. Um, then the 4-0 win against Leicester, which yeah, to be fair, was a very very convincing performance. As we mentioned before, that was when Better really announced himself with some really good goals. Decore with like the quickest goal in our history or whatever it was. So yeah, that was definitely a special one. And then the 1-0 win at Brighton has also got two votes here. Real ground out away victory. Again in the Moyes early days. And Dye got that daft booking for the celebration as well, which was my main
amazing.
memory from that one.
Yeah,
But then yeah, the third place goes to the Forest game, as we mentioned earlier, the 1-0 win down there. Decore last minute winner, as we say. What more can be said about that? Um, then Spurs game, as I've just mentioned there, with five votes, came in second, and then the f first place once again is it's the home derby, 2-2 draw against Liverpool. So yeah, as a game, to be fair, I can understand why it sticks in the memory so much. Um, and yeah, to be fair, the only blight I remember saying at the time, the only blight on that game really was that I walked out of there just kind of thinking that probably should have been a winner. Like, and if it had been a winner,
yeah.
as special a moment as it already was, that would have just elevated it threefold. Like, it would have really made it an unforgettable moment because based on our performance, I honestly think we were the better side and really showed a lack of fear against Liverpool, who were winning like every week at that time, and obviously went on to lift the league championship very convincingly. And yet, for most of the game, I thought we played them off the park, to be honest. So, yeah, the only frustration, as I say, was that this is only a draw, but still, as I say, it was a very convincing performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think, we looked at when Moyes came back, sort of the fragilities of David Moyes and potentially what we didn't like about his first spell at the club. And one of the things that we talked about on the pod was his ability to pick up wins against the quote unquote bigger teams. And, we saw later in the season with Man City at home and with the Chelsea game as well, he still has those bigger sides that he can't quite seem to get right in terms of game management. And we'll see next season when he's had a full transfer window what that looks like. But I think the Liverpool game at home, with the run they were on, with the run that we were on, I think it just really showcased that there are glimmers of hope when it comes to David Moyes setting a side up against, again, quote unquote, bigger team. And I think we probably gave them as difficult a game as anyone in the league this season. And I dare say there'd be a handful of their fans that would begrudgingly admit that as well. So, yeah, another worthy winner. We knew that this was going to dominate this game in its many aspects, was going to dominate the awards today. But yeah, I can't think of another game I'd have voted for over that one.
Yeah, can't argue with any of that. Moving on to the under 21s, which looking from the outside in a little bit, seems to have been mostly a positive experience this season, I think. And it's something that has really regressed in the last few years with us struggling, but it does seem now that a lot more care has been and a lot more effort has been put into trying to improve our young players going forward, which is obviously very exciting. Um, This was won by Jensen Metcalf last season, who I know has been out at Chesterfield this year, and by all accounts has impressed pretty well. They've had a decent season down there. Um, Isaac Heath was given it by the club himself. He's been someone who's kind of been on the bench a few times, which is always kind of the sign that they're doing well. And even it's usually down to us basically having half our squad out injured and having to fill it with the kids and two goalkeepers or whatever. But you have to be playing well to be involved in that. But the winner is Amari Benjamin, who came in last summer from Arsenal. I remember at the time this was viewed as a bit of a coup getting hold of him because
Yeah.
obviously Arsenal's academy streets ahead of us really, and if he's just been there and just been let go, then there's definitely a player in there, and it's proved really. He's got 9 goals and 3 assists in 25 games, so a very decent return, and yeah, all every fan base wants young talent coming through, and obviously with PSR at the moment as well now, it's probably more important than ever, isn't it? So yeah, it's good to see the under 21s doing well, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, you know, what's really interesting for me in all of these backroom changes is we don't quite know what the structure of it will be next season, but we know that James Vaughan, as the loan manager, has had his kind of contract terminated or run down. And it will just be really interesting now under this kind of Moyes and Friedkin group setup, what the under 21s looks like in terms of recruiting talent like Benjamin in, but also the pathways that we offer them out. You mentioned there with Metcalf going to Chesterfield, and obviously we know with Harrison Armstrong having quite a promising spell at Derby, we just desperately want to see these lads playing regular football and making the step up into that team. Because as you alluded to there, and with the predicament that we're in this summer, Al, right, we can't replace the sheer volume of players that we're about to lose. And so now more than ever might be a time for another flock of youngsters to kind of come into a David Moyes Everton side. So it's a really exciting time, and there are some really good shining lights in that under 21s team that might be making a step up to the first team in the next couple of seasons.
Yep, completely agreed there. And so yeah, we've done the under 21s. We'll now move on to the women's team and the player of the season on that side of things. And to do this award, we're going to go over to Sienna. So yeah, please take that one away.
Thanks, Alex and Harry. As I'm sure you're all aware, it's a really exciting time at Everton Women right now. The season didn't take off immediately, but the shape it's taken has shown great progression and promise, and we can't wait to see what's in store for next season. The first few games we struggled to find our rhythm, but when it came to the first Merseyside derby on matchday 8, the girls certainly delivered with a 1-0 victory over our neighbours at Goodison Park, becoming our first 3 points of the season. From there, the girls only grew in confidence, producing some outstanding results to pull themselves away from relegation worries, most notably the 2-1 win over Manchester City just before the January break at Walton Hall Park. With fresh investment from the new owners, the club were able to bring in 6 impactful signings in the transfer window, bringing in names like Martina Fernandez from Barcelona, the experienced Norwegian international in Maren Mjeld, and goal scorer Kelly Gargo. Overall, we finished the season in 8th position, but the improvement that was made over the season was outstanding, and the girls definitely finished on a high, doing the double over rivals Liverpool and getting 4 points from Manchester City for the first time in their history. It feels like onwards and upwards for Everton women as we look towards next season, where the girls will carry on Goodison's legacy as the Grand Old Lady will become the permanent home of the team. I personally cannot wait, and I'm so eager for the season to get rolling already. Now onto our Toffee Blues Women's Player of the Season award to see who's going to follow in the footsteps of Natalie Bjorn and Courtney Brosnan, who were the previous 2 winners. The award for our Women's Player of the Season is incredibly well deserved. We've had so many players who have had fantastic seasons, but the award has to go to Sarah Homegaard this season. She has been vital for us, immense in the backline, not just defending, but driving forward and connecting play throughout transitions. Her pinpoint deliveries, assists and crosses have been essential for us and so often led directly to goals. So for that, she's our Women's Player of the Season, and she truly deserves all the recognition for everything she's given to the team this season. So congratulations, Sarah, and now back to Alex and Harry for the rest of the awards.
Thank you very much for that, Sienna, and yeah, a worthy winner there in Sarah Holmgard, and yeah, we've spoken about it, haven't we? It's a very exciting time for the Everton women's side, and I'm sure interest will definitely have intensified now that fans know that they're going to be at Goodison Park every week, and if you can't make it to Bramley Moor for whatever reason, or obviously during the international breaks as well, it's as the lens has always been a lot more intensified on women's football then. But yeah, I'm sure we'll see an increase in attendances and hopefully an increase in interest in the women's side of things. So yeah, very positive side of things, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. We know with the new owners as well, they're Americans. We know that women's football is arguably equal to, if not bigger than the men's game in the States. So any kind of intel or aspect of that the new ownership bring to the women's side of the game, we just know it's exciting for them. And it was a real statement of intent, obviously, to gift them Goodison Park for next season. So really exciting times. And yeah, as you said, another really good winner for today's award.
Yeah, and I think it's also we're setting a bit of a pathway as well. I think I'm right in saying that Arsenal women have now announced that all their games this season will be at the Emirates. So yeah,
Perfect.
it's definitely creating a pathway, and as I say, increasing the interest in women's football, which is definitely a positive. So yeah, we'll move on to young player of the season now, and obviously we've spoken a little bit about the academy, but obviously this is more young players in and around the first team. And again, this is a bit of a conclusive winner. Last season's winner was Jarrad Branthwaite. Um, just going through the rundown here. Harrison Armstrong got a couple of votes. Obviously, was only in the first team for the first half of the season, then went out on loan to Derby, and by all accounts has absolutely excelled. Their fans are very sad to be losing him if indeed he is uh, going to be in the Everton first team picture next season or given a more improved loan, as you say. But yeah, I think I'm really excited to see him in particular in pre-season if indeed he does play. Then Jake O'Brien is in second place with 4 votes, but first place and retaining the award is Jarrad Branthwaite with 17 votes to his name. It was yeah, pretty decisive victory that, and yeah, there was only really going to be one winner of that one, wasn't there?
Though what I would say for this award is the same thing I say for all of these awards is, at what point do you become so established that you shouldn't be eligible for young player? But absolutely the right winner. But I dare say Jake O'Brien watching this video would be slightly aggrieved that we've allowed Branthwaite to be eligible for this one. Because again, big mention to Jake O'Brien. What talk about the season being split into two halves. What a second half. Branthwaite's just been an absolute brick wall again all season and for the second season in a row.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, I guess I think O'Brien in particular was definitely a very good candidate for most improved player, as you say. So
Mm.
yeah, maybe should have been given his flowers on another one, to be honest. Um, And yeah, we'll move on to the Everton Icon Award, which is something we award every season to a fan's favourite, a special player. And just looking through the previous winners of this award, there's a lot of household names in there. You've got Howard Kendall, Duncan Ferguson, Tim Cahill, Leighton Baines, Seamus Coleman, Neville Southall, and last season's winner, Jordan Pickford. And yeah, again, this was another one that had all sorts, a lot of names being thrown into the hat for this one. Colin Harvey, Leon Osman, Idrissa Gay, Stephen Pienaar, Iliman Ndiaye, Richarlison, and Romelu Lukaku each got a vote. James Tarkowski, Phil Jagielka, and David Moyes all got 2 votes. Peter Reid got 3 votes, but first place with 7 votes to his name. One I voted for, and I think a very, very worthy winner of this one is Kevin Campbell, who has, of course, proved himself to be such a beloved club icon. Obviously, after his really sad passing last summer at such a young age, his name's been sung around the ground in pretty much every single game we've played this season. And yeah, with a real special name in Everton fans' hearts. Definitely a worthy winner of this one, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm going to throw it out there and say I voted for Stephen Pienaar. But when I saw this list and I realised that I didn't vote for Kevin Campbell, I felt a touch of guilt and a bit of shame because, as you say, there is only one winner this year, and really lovely. I think if anyone hasn't seen this yet, the Goodbye to Goodison documentary that Sky put out, and the bit with Ty Campbell talking about the impact of playing at Everton on his dad and on his upbringing as well, you can just see what kind of a man he was, but also what he meant to Everton in such a short space of time that he was at the club as well. Because lest we forget, he wasn't there for years and years. So, but an absolute worthy winner. He made such a big impact, and yeah, sorely missed in football.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a real special moment when they sang his name the whole ground when Arsenal played us back in
Yeah.
April. Obviously, this is almost a year now after the news, but obviously it was the first time we'd had Arsenal at Goodison Park, and it was a real special tribute and a really special moment. And then finally, to round off this one, it's probably the main award, the one that everyone will be waiting for, the Player of the Season award. It's been absolutely dominated by Jordan Pickford the last three seasons, both by the club and on this channel in particular. He's won it the last three seasons, but I can reveal that he only came in second this time, so still a very strong candidate. But yeah, with nine votes to his name, he came in second. Jake O'Brien. To be fair to him, as we say, basically only really played the second half of the season, but his
Yeah.
performances were so strong that someone felt it worthy to give him a vote as player of the season. James Tarkowski and Illiman and Dye also got a vote to their name, but just edging out Pickford with 11 votes to his name. The Everton Player of the Season award goes to Idrissa Gueye. And yeah, I think, as you say, Pickford almost should have been ineligible for this one, but I think even on his own merits, I think Idrissa Gueye has deserved it this year. He's been, as I say, he won Most Improved Player last season when he came in at the end of the season, and that kind of coincided with an upturn in results. But this season, he's basically been ever present, even at such an old age, for a footballer, and has just been just an absolutely outstanding player week in, week out, hasn't he? He's really contributed to a good season.
Yeah, I know we'd have talked on the pod in different phases this season of James Tarkowski, and I know it's one of the one things that maybe we've disagreed on this season is that impact and reliability of someone like James Tarkowski. I'd say Idrissa Gana kind of goes above criticism. I think even when he has an off game, it's very easy to say, yeah, but look at how many good games he has. Look at his age. Look at the effort and energy he puts in. And again, I think the games under Moyes where we've done badly, we talked about Tarkovsky coming off in the City game, but also anytime James Garner needed to come off or anytime James Garner had a quiet day, it really showed in terms of the difference in quality and control that we had. And again, he's another one we're expecting that he's going to sign a new 2 year deal. I think that's all but been confirmed now by the club at the time of recording this. And that's one of the most important ones to tie down. So, yeah, absolutely a worthy winner. I think consistently, he's not going to bag you 5 goals from midfield a season, but he definitely contributes in pretty much every other way other than getting on the score sheet. So yeah, absolutely worthy to dethrone Pickford. But Al, I've got to say, I voted for the man that we said should have been ineligible. So
Yeah, and obviously, I just a special mention to Pickford, who was almost always gets his flowers in these videos and hasn't kind of escaped mention really so far somehow in this one. But yeah, another outstanding season for him. Obviously, it's the summer, so England are playing, and obviously when England play, the debates ramble on about, oh, should Pickford be our goalkeeper, even though he's literally not put a foot wrong in however many years now for the club or country. So yeah, another special mention to Jordan Pickford, who's had another fantastic season. But yeah, on that note, that rounds off the awards show for the 2024-25 season. Thank you very much for joining me as ever, Harry.
always, mate, not a problem. My pleasure.
And yeah, I'm sure we'll be back again soon with a podcast, maybe during pre-season at some point, talking about all the signings we brought in and looking at, are we going to finish sixth or fifth next season? Who knows? But yeah, we'll definitely look forward to that. But yeah, please leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Comment below, giving who you thought should have won these awards. You disagree with the general consensus of the Toffee Blues crew. And yeah, subscribe to the Toffee Blues channel for more Everton content, and we will see you in the next video. Up the Toffees.